Hey folks, welcome back. Thanks again for joining us, and for those that are new to the channel, thanks for taking the time. Hope you enjoy it. So this week, this presentation is basically two in one. The first half of the presentation is my review of air show footage that I found online. That's it. And the reason I was doing that this week is because I know a few people I saw in comments where people are a little frustrated because they're trying to do this and not really finding anything in their recording. So I thought I would show you a way to train your eye so you can identify these things more easily. And it's fun, and it's a cool way to get better at it too. So and then the second half of the footage is my own captures from the past week, and that's it. So hope you enjoy. Check it out. I tried not to talk too much because a lot of it is self-explanatory, but again, the first half of it is footage that is not mine, and unfortunately I can't vouch for when it was taken, where it was taken, the type of camera, all that stuff is out of my hands. All I can tell you is that I watched footage and to see what I could find, and now I'm sharing what I found. So enjoy, talk to you on the other side. Thanks. Okay, so like I just mentioned, I'm not going to talk you through each and every one of these. I'm just going to point out things that I find are interesting, but so many of these are obvious. All you need to do is just watch. This one's a little tougher to see. It basically does a J. It swoops down from the top right, hooks, and then comes back up across the nose of this plane. So obviously when something's moving that fast and at distance, it's next to impossible to see, um, in my opinion. But that's why we zoom in and slow it down first, so you kind of train your eye what to look for. I tend to call these pencils, but I mean, they move terrifically fast and have no visible sign of propulsion or stabilization. So this is one of several which does require a little talking through. This thing sort of just emanates out of nowhere, for starters. And then the second one shoots by from right to left, right there. I've mentioned previously in prior presentations that when we capture insects and birds, and I mean kites, anything prosaic, there's never a question as to where it emanates or comes from, unlike this thing in the middle that just kind of appears. We're going to take a closer look at this and slow it down a bit, because not only does it just appear, but it seems to have some sort of a shadow or an echo, right? Like there's some sort of trail that it's left in there. We're going to see that in other points in the same presentation. But that the echo or the shadow seems to, at the last moment, take off in a different direction. So what's that about? We're going to take a look at this shot twice, because this thing goes behind the tail and behind the wing, which usually you get one or the other. It's not often you get both like this, but clearly that's what happened. I should also point out too, there's a lot going on in this particular capture. We're just focusing on limited portions of it. I mean, you see what I mean? There's a lot going on right there, right? We are going to highlight this just because it was so obvious. It seems like it'd be a little odd not to acknowledge it. Focus on the 1 o'clock area. So, like I've mentioned many times, I'm just sharing what I find or capture and sharing my thoughts about it, right? I'm not particularly interested in arguing with people, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But if I were going to try to make an argument, footage like this is pretty compelling in terms of whether something's a bug in the foreground or not. You know, here's something else that's worth kicking around that I thought about when I saw this is that if you accept it, whatever this is, moved behind the plane and was relatively close to it, then it went through the exhaust stream. And from a physics perspective, whatever that is, it shouldn't be able to do that, at least not unabated. And that's what it seems to do. This one is very subtle, admittedly, but, you know, I spotted it, so I'm including it. So this is footage of a fighter jet from another fighter jet, and it's slowed, but watch this. Watch the way this thing moves around. We're going to look at it more closely, but look, we're going to look at it in stages too, but this is slowed a bit so you can get a sense of what's happening here. You know, I've mentioned before, not all of these things are fast movers, so the rest of this presentation is in real time. And look at this thing. It curves around, comes over, and then heads back up, turns from black to white as it goes through the cloud, and then takes off straight up in the air. We zoom in on that exit right here. We've zoomed and slowed this, which is the most intriguing aspect of this footage to me, and it's how these things move with this echoing trace trail thing. It's very different from anything prosaic that we record. Nothing prosaic appears this way when we replay it. And I don't know how to explain it, and I know these are cameras that are on our military planes, so they should be good. This is my favorite of the footage I found online because I very, very rarely find evidence of these things working in concert and in conjunction with one another. And this is what this looks like to me. I don't know how else to interpret this. I see the one come down, and then as it turns toward the plane, the other one comes down, but then it seems to hesitate and wait for it, and then the two depart together. And I don't know how else to view that. If that interpretation, which I just described, is correct or accurate, then it brings to bear all these other questions about their communication and all sorts of things. I've said many times before, and I'll say it again, I don't know what these things are, but I do know behavior that I recognize, and this is not recognizable behavior of anything prosaic from the animal kingdom that I learned about growing up. This is another one we're going to take in stages, but it is self explanatory. There is one part of this capture which I don't know what to make of, and it's this. This thing seems to appear right there and then come out. Um, there's no other point. I'm going to pause this here. There's no other point where it's shown in the fuselage. It's on the back. Yet we have this one frame where it seems to be in front. So I don't know what to make of that. I think Dr. Shipe would say that's the gamma ray factor. Okay, so that's that for the online footage that I analyzed. And now we're just going to take a look at a few dragonflies to sort of remind your eye and your brain of what that looks like and the tempo, the sort of the cadence of it versus our aircraft. And then we'll return to some captures like this for a comparison. So I know not everybody's a fan of recording blank sky, but if you happen to have a technique to capture these things, then go for it because then you can get some really good close-ups like these. A lot of people like to call these insects, and they may be, but if they are, just share the taxonomy. Or if you're an expert and an entomologist, please, chime into the comments and let us know exactly what these insects are. in this zoomed in view, this thing comes into one frame right there. I don't know if you saw it, but we're going to take another look at it just because, you know, it doesn't mean much, but it's just improbable. Look at this. It's paused, and it's right where the helicopter is, then it's unpaused. So again, if anybody's an expert and has taxonomy on whatever this insect is, if it's an insect, please forward it because it's very dynamic. Okay, top right, we're zoomed in on an orb that sort of flutters around, gets brighter, gets dimmer, kind of does basically the same thing every orb we capture does. Here's a prior capture just to demonstrate that some of these orbs come underneath the planes and then sometimes they're above the planes. So as you may know, I call these not clouds because they look like clouds, but they're not, and they move at an exceptional rate of speed. Your eye might have picked up on this, but here's another one in the middle of the screen from left to right. If you focus on the bottom, 6 o'clock, you'll see that one coming up. And then in a moment, there's going to be another one toward the right, right there. And then a few moments later, you'll see basically what looks like an orb come from left to right, right there. And this one falls into the self-explanatory category, but I just wanted to point out that I changed the contrast a bit because the sky was particularly gray and made it difficult to perceive. Okay, so I think this is obvious, but just, for the sake of completeness, I should point out that the rotor speed gives you a sense of how fast these things are moving. And this, again, is at 60 frames per second. So that wraps up the captures of this past week that we wanted to share. And now we're going to briefly revisit the not bird situation that we featured last week. So to quickly recap, we captured this footage. I saw that and assumed it was a bird. Then I zoomed in and assumed it was an eagle because of the coloration. Then I zoomed in more and slowed it down more and started to question the whole thing because I wasn't sure it was a bird at all because I didn't see feathers. I didn't see feet, tail feathers, anything. And now we're going to focus on this last frame because I thought I saw an eye, which seemed to be out of place and way too large. I also could not locate a beak. The wingspan proportions seemed to be off, and the motion of flight was not consistent with any of the other captures of birds. So we focused on this one frame and started adjusting the settings to try to draw out the detail. And then we did some further adjusting, and you could see once we changed the contrast and brightness and the black point, then that eye really became prominent, and this diamond-shaped head structure as well. And this is what it looks like when it's zoomed in. And I'll leave to you to decide what you think this is, but it does not look like a bird to me. If it was just this abnormal look and everything else was in a line with bird looks and behavior, then we wouldn't be talking about this. The problem I'm having with this is that there's nothing about this that's actually bird-like. And the funny part about this is I thought this little exercise was going to give me the clarity so I'd be able to see the beak and all the other things and sort of put this to bed. But instead, it's just left me with more questions. And now I'm like, why does this thing look like a velociraptor? All right, folks, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the airshow footage. I want to point out that, and it's in the description, most of that footage I secured from a YouTube channel, Bob Sagrani, and I left a link for his channel in the description because the footage he gets is really dynamic and it's really cool. Yeah, so like I said at the outset, if you want to train your eye to be able to spot these things, like Robert Shipe says at Custodian File, air shows are a good place to start. And so that's what I decided to do this week, sort of as an example to show you folks that really anybody can do this. But it's just a matter of, like I said, training your eye and figuring out how to look at things and allowing your brain to not write things off as prosaic when they aren't. So anyway, that's it. As always, please share these videos with other people you think might enjoy them. And most importantly, please comment. I don't have any answers. I have a ton of questions, and I'd love to open source this and get all the feedback, good or bad. Doesn't really matter to me. But I think as a community, we can make some headway and figure these things out. So let's have at it. Thanks, guys.